Hi, Alyssa.
Good morning.
Good morning, and welcome back to Mentored, the podcast where we've. Oh, I'm gonna run that again.
Hold on, I'm out of breath.
And welcome back to Mentored. Okay, go ahead. What do you need
Live.
mentorship? We're a little rusty here. What do you need mentorship with today, Alyssa? Please.
All right, okay. So last year, the bakery grew a lot.
Wow.
A lot. We expanded quite a bit, which was like really fun, but also tiring and crazy.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's kind of what I wanted to touch on, honestly. Is, when do you decide you need more space? When do you buy better equipment? What's like the benefits over the cost? Because that was something that I don't think we were quite prepared for, is how expensive things can get.
Yeah.
Because what we did last year was we moved buildings. We incorporated, which means we now have a lawyer, an accountant, a bookkeeper, and we actually just hired an employee.
Wow.
But that's this year, so we'll talk about that in probably next week's episode. But yeah, I know like for us, that was a crazy big decision. That took a lot of like as much planning as we possibly could. But I want to hear like from your experience, because I know you've grown a few businesses and expanded little by little, and then you did one big move. How do you just like when do you decide? How do you know? How will I know when it's time to move on to something even bigger? Because right now I can't imagine that. Take the floor.
Yeah, I guess so. I think like the way you started was in like the basement of a house, of like a trap house or whatever, where you had.
It was the kitchen. And basement sounds like
Okay,
dingy,
yes.
and
I'm being dramatic. You started in a home kitchen, and with no rent at all, right? No expenses at all,
no.
and went from that to you're in a kind of hybrid building now where it's like a commercial kitchen sort of situation, but it's still not like a full-on building with rent.
Yeah, like nothing crazy.
There's costs associated with it, but it's not like a full
not
situation.
like I feel like not in the same realm as you, where it's
Well, yeah. But okay, so like I feel like a lot. I'll start kind of with my own anecdotes and then kind of go from there. So like where we started the first business is a liquor manufacturing operation in 2017. We opened, and we had a building right at the beginning, because to get health permits and all that stuff, you need an actual building and you need to be incorporated and all this stuff. Like you need to. So there was no option for me to like do stuff at home.
Right.
So we jumped into it kind of right at the beginning, but we got like one of the smallest commercially zoned for manufacturing operation, like buildings you possibly could. It was about, they said 2,000 square feet, but I found out later that they have a lie, that they were including the structural mezzanine in that square footage, which you're not really supposed to do.
So it's actually smaller.
It was smaller than 2,000 square feet. Yeah, so probably closer to 1,600 is what we ran the entire operation out of. So we started with like a little store and 2 offices in the front, and then we eventually and then all the manufacturing in the back, and then like storage up on the second floor, and then we eventually converted that into a bar in the front. But it was like a little no kitchen, like just 10-seat tasting room sort of situation.
Right.
Anyway, but this was like the smallest building that we possibly could, because number one, we were 18 at the time and we didn't have any money to fall back on. So we were looking for the cheapest rent that we possibly could. And then number two, we didn't know, 2,000 square feet seems very big when you have nothing, right? And like I look at pictures back then and we're just like using a tiny little corner of it, and we're like, whatever. And
making the most out of it.
Yeah. So that's the thing that like, this is kind of off topic, but like that you started even smaller, like without a building at all,
Yeah.
which is like how a lot of businesses start, is kind of from the garage or from the basement or for whatever,
Yeah.
right? Like, which I think is smart and cool. People ask me a lot, like if I would have done that if I had the ability to,
Right.
and I'm not sure what my answer would be. Especially because like at that time I was like moving every 9 months and like didn't really have a house to call my own kind of thing.
Yeah. It's also hard to like put yourself in that situation if you're like you've never been in it. You can't be like, well, I guess I would have decided differently, but you didn't have an option, right? So
The whole idea of like doing that first jump from like the home base sort of thing to like an actual operation, I think is a jump that like not many businesses ever get to.
right.
Like we do a lot of, the two of us do a lot of farmers markets at our respective businesses, and we talk to a lot of business owners and vendors at these markets that never want to go bigger because they're scared of
Yeah.
having their first employee or having their rent pit or whatever, right? So they just kind of stay as a hobby sized business forever. And so making that first jump, number one, congratulations. I'm proud of you that you made that jump from home base to actually commercial. That's great. But I guess like for you, and like you could speak to this too, but I know your mentality is like you were completely maxing out what you could do in the space that you were in. You would show up to a market. It starts at 8 a.m. You'd be sold out by 8:45, and that was like,
Well, okay. Maybe like 9. Come on.
okay, but that was like waiting, or that was working all night till 5 in the morning,
Yeah.
baking as much as you possibly could, and then you would sell it all
Yeah.
easily.
Well, and I mean, not to pat like me and my business partner on the back, but also like we made as much as we could, and we took something that like takes time. You know what I mean? Like we do sourdough. I'm sure I've mentioned this. If I didn't, like,
This might be their first episode though.
still, go watch all the other 10.
So you moving to the commercial space was when you were like literally capped out, and you could see there's customers walking up trying to give you more money for the same product that you do, and you couldn't supply them because you couldn't physically make it anymore.
Which is such a bad feeling.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's probably a similar. It was much later in my career, but that was a similar time of when we moved the winery from the original building to the second building as well. Was when, like, I mean, you saw that building right before we left. Like, you literally, it was wall to wall to the ceiling with storage of product and wine and
So
production.
much stuff.
You had to disassemble everything during the week, so that we could like use the front and then reassemble it to like make wine and stuff, and it was crazy.
Just to get around.
Yeah. So the times where I've moved and the time where you moved are very similar, where it was like literally we're capping out at what we can do physically in the space, and then we're leaving a bunch of money on the table because there's like, I have like in my case, we have the liquor stores that were in the government liquor stores, and they were like trying to place 100 case orders, and we're like, well, we have 50. And that was happening every single month, where they were like trying to order more than we had, and products were going out of stock and people were trying to buy it, and it was just like a mess. And then we had this off-site storage facility that we were aging the wine in, like out of town just by like 5 minutes. But it was like we were spending upwards of an hour a day moving pallets back and forth, like in our van, to like, it was dumb. And we actually probably held on a little bit longer than we should have, practically, but that was a COVID-19 sort of thing,
Oh, I see.
where we didn't know if it was going to get worse before it got better, because we were on a 2-year lease renewal, and then it came up in like June 2021 or whatever, or May 2021, and it was like we didn't know what was going on. Like the bar was getting
that's
shut
fair,
down.
though.
Like, so then we actually did tour some other buildings and at that time, and then didn't pull the trigger just because that was a big part of it, was the COVID thing.
That was a scary time, though, I think, right?
I think for businesses, yeah, for sure.
100%, yeah.
Because you didn't know what the government was going to say, or like now all of a sudden we're shut down or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, and then by the time the next 2-year renewal came up, it was like we were busting at the seams of that building. So I think that's the best piece of advice is I think like, funny enough, like you've already done it the way I would have recommend doing it, which is good.
I mean, you did tell me
Yeah.
to be fair, he does mentor me off of this podcast.
Yeah, we don't just speak when we do this, but I think like there's people that I've seen that have expanded because they're greedy. Like they want to have a second location even though their first location doesn't fill the seats.
Yeah.
Or they want to have a shinier store, that looks nicer in a nicer location, when that's not actually that's not actually going to help the business.
Yeah.
Like they do that, and then a couple examples I'm thinking of off the top of my head, like went under within 5 years because they overextended themselves, and it was just kind of like grass is greener sort of thing.
That's a lot to take on. I think people don't always think of that, because I can think of like even just one person off the top of my head where before even one location was open, they had another one. Which isn't, like, I can't even imagine the stress of that, like, let alone...
And the purpose as well. Like, I think, like, I don't know. Unless you have incredibly deep pockets, which neither of us do, no. I don't understand just make one thing work and then expand is usually my kind of mentorship on the topic.
Yeah, 100%.
So the same thing with, like, equipment and whatnot. Like, we're both manufacturers. I mean, we're both food businesses, but we're both manufacturing more or less. Like I
would say so.
Me more than you, I guess. But so as far as equipment goes, like we always kind of replaced. If I have 6 main parts of my bottling line, we have the pump, the bottle filler, the vat, the corker, the labeler, the sealer, whatever, 6, 7.
No. Oh my gosh.
6, 7.
We just get caught in a loop now.
5 or 7 pieces of equipment that like make up the main part of the manufacturing.
Yeah.
What we would do is like when we started to save up money, or when we were kind of capping out what we could, we would identify what the piece of equipment that was I'll say bottleneck, which is funny because they're wine bottles, but the bottleneck of the bottling operation, we would identify that and then replace that one. And then we did that 10 times over the last, 10 years kind of thing, to the point where we're getting it pretty fast. Like I actually asked my business partner the other day what, because we're doing pretty good for money right now in the summer. So I was like, what piece of equipment is next that we want to add? And he was like, honestly, labor is the next one. Like,
wow, what a place to be at. That's crazy.
The equipment that we have is fast enough that more employees would make it faster. Wow. So, but then like, this is a topic for another day, but the production employees are hard to hire for because we're not busy enough. Like we bottle, sometimes it's 4 times a week and then not again for a month.
Right.
Like, so it's a hard job. So we have a part-timer retiree that helps out, with the bottling right now, which is great for him because he's just like, I'm down to work whenever, except Wednesday when it's his darts day.
You gotta have a day.
And then he's down to work whenever on short notice sort of thing. So that works really good right now. But we need to get a little bit bigger before we can have like a regular 40-hour week kind of production person. But so that's kind of been my ethos with upgrading equipment as well, is like, it's almost like counterintuitive. It's almost like doing it the opposite way, where it's not like, okay, this is really this one part of the equipment's really slow. Let's look into getting the money to replace it. It was like, okay, we have a little bit extra money. What do we replace? Like it was almost like the opposite way. And that's just kind of being in like a startup mindset back then, especially, where it was like, okay, we finally have $2,000 left at the end of the month. What do we spend it on, kind of thing? Right. And then it's like, okay, well, what would be the, have we spent, do we have inventory? Okay. Do we have this? Okay. Do we do this? Okay. Well, maybe let's go to equipment and see what do we need for equipment, kind of thing.
Right.
And
See,
then,
I feel like that's like maybe like one of the only differences is like a lot of my ingredients are cheap.
Yeah.
It really is the labor and the equipment that's like the super expensive part. I guess like not like so different, you know what I mean? But like
Yeah, like you know, out of my my operation, all three of them like the same,
yeah,
where it's the ingredients or the inputs are the
interesting.
cheapest part.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
obviously yours are more technique probably, like you know, you're literally taking flour, water, salt. You know, that's the cheapest stuff you can get. And I mean, maybe I shouldn't say that to you when you see the grocery bill at the end of the month every month.
It's honestly not bad at all. I think I
Okay.
was comparing it to like cuz you like the orders and like I mean like fruit is expensive. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like I feel like maybe that's kind of what I was like comparing it to is like I see in my head some of the invoices that you guys receive cuz I'm also a bar
Yeah.
manager at Shrugging Doctor,
Shout out.
shrugdoc.com. I think I shout it out every episode. I think that's probably what I was comparing it to.
Right.
Is that like
This is how much I pay on.
maybe that's what it is,
Yeah.
but I guess like overall, like that's a good point. Is like
Yeah.
it's all kind of the same, but the
Yeah.
ingredients are the cheapest part.
Of the
Operation.
of the operation,
That- okay,
right?
that
or,
makes
or
sense
from making
then.
the product. Because same with the same thing with the other two businesses, which are in the rubber stamp and engraving industry. A lot of the material is pretty cheap,
Mm.
but it's the labor that goes into it is like the physical, you know, like let's say we have a $10 item, it's usually like, you know, 50 cents of that is the cost of the material and $9.50 is the cost of the labor, that because
Right.
it's a like steps, especially like the stamps and everything, there's a lot of like just human hands need to do it sort of thing. And then the equipment also is pretty expensive in comparison. I guess like I'm thinking, I'm kind of gazing off the edge of the camera here, but I'm like thinking about all three businesses and all the different equipment we have, and it's like probably pretty. Well, I guess the winery has the most expensive equipment by far, with like the canning line that was like $200,000.
I would agree. Yeah.
But I have a bunch of machines of the stamp company that we bought in the last year that are like between the 10 and 20 grand range. UV printer, sublimation printer, laser engraving machines. I have one old one, knock on wood, that's still very well. That was probably 25 grand brand new, but it's just from 2003 or whatever. And then the one we bought was like less than 10 grand, more than 6, but it's like a cheap Chinese laser.
Right.
But equipment, like, you know, definitely for all of us, for both of us, the manufacturing, anyone in the manufacturing industry, the equipment is always going to be the biggest expense of like the production cycle, and then it's labor number one cost for like actually making the products, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
For all, like, you know, I have 2 full-time people making stamps, and then you have 2.5, I guess, people making
I mean, yeah.
making bread. So
Yeah. I don't know. Me and my business partner is whenever we can get paid,
yeah.
we'll be a paid employee.
Yeah. I guess,
Yeah.
does that answer your question about when to upgrade?
I think so. I mean, I guess it's just like you just keep. I feel like it's just the most simple business thing, right? Where it's like you have a demand, so you
Yeah.
try to meet the demand.
I guess, like, yeah, like, because that's the biggest takeaway that I want you to take is I want you to don't try to like anticipate a demand that's not there.
Yeah.
Try to grow into a demand that's already demanding,
Yeah.
rather than the alternative, which is like, I'm going to spend all this money doing this thing that I don't even know if there's a market for.
That's a good point.
I like, and you know, if someone was sitting across from me that was like, hey, I have a $5 million check from my father, I want to start a business, you know, maybe my advice would be different. But for us that are like kind of in a scrappier position where we like have to really fight for every dollar that we get, that's what I have done. That's what I recommend you do, is kind of like try something out, see the demands there, and then grow into that demand and spend the money on what's working, rather than spending money and hoping
right.
that you're like going to meet someone's demand that you don't even know it exists
Yeah.
yet.
Which I feel like is good advice, and I'm glad that like that we've had this conversation, not like this exact one, but similar, when I was talking about like expanding, because I really do feel like because like we just put like between me and my business partner, we put like I think it was like $500 all in on like a credit card. And that was mostly just like flour and a little bit of equipment, literally just the ingredients and the tiniest little bit of equipment that we could like get by. Sheep hens are so expensive, by the way, ridiculous.
And they're just pieces of metal.
It's just so silly. But I feel like honestly, like if I had gone in all in day one on a like $15,000 oven and like $8,000 mixer, I wouldn't be in business anymore.
Yeah.
Like there's just no way. I think that year one, I think we sold like 3 loaves of bread at a market, and we've like grown a little bit since then. But it's like I can't even imagine, like I would have burned so much cash. So I'm glad that it's like that's the advice that I've like followed the whole time, is just like get to a point where you can't sell, or like you're selling too much and then expand and then like keep trying to hit those milestones.
Yeah.
So if you spend more money on better equipment, what's the benefit over the cost for that?
I think it's like for well, I don't know. It's you gotta like balance. Like for manufacturing, it's almost always worth spending more on equipment, I think. But you have to you have to understand your business, and like sometimes more expensive isn't better. Right. Sometimes you can spend a lot more money on something, but a $2 spoon does the same.
Right.
The same thing as a $50,000 automatic giant metal. Like who knows, right? Like so I gotta say, do the research for your own industry. Like everyone's business is going to be different, but I think in general, I wouldn't be scared to spend the money.
Yeah. Do you think like for me, there would ever be a point where me spending money on advertising versus equipment would be money better well spent?
Yeah, 100%. I think we go back and forth every couple of years on we're selling to the cap of what we can, our demand is outweighing our supply, so we need to reinvest all our money in increasing supply, and then you increase supply a bunch, and now you don't have the demand to fill that supply, and then you have to fill it up again by growing, and then go back and forth. So yeah, 100%. Like for the winery, I find it about every 2 years where we have to like we got to go spend money on marketing again, because now we have like an empty bar. Like when we went from 10 seats to 100 seats in the new place, now it's okay. Now we have 10 people a night. We could have another 90. And when we went from 5,000 liters a month to 50,000 liters a month, it's like, okay, well now we have all these bottles we don't sell. So now refocus back onto marketing. Because I think like what's the point of keeping to grow your, capacity to manufacture over and over and over again when there's not people to come buy it, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So no, I think 100% is like there's definitely times where you would want to refocus your money on advertising would be good, or like in your case where you're doing farmers markets are very successful. I think like more staff to do more markets at the same time, and I would do that before I would expand in your current capacity rather than like getting a second location, for instance.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was just thinking about that because I just recently saw a billboard for a bakery like here where we live, and I was like, I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah.
I guess you can do anything if you have money.
Yeah, you can. Billboards actually aren't that expensive.
Really, in my head they are.
A couple $1,000s, I think.
That's crazy.
Yeah, especially the digital ones that like only play it for like, whatever, 30 seconds.
Fancy. I haven't seen a digital one in forever. I don't drive in the rich part of town. Okay, well, I feel like overall it's those like those business simulator games.
Yeah.
Where you start with like $100 and then you just like work your way up and it's like the little bit of upgrades. That's all we're doing.
Yeah.
It's just a real life business simulator, and that's my takeaway, I think. Okay,
so before we go, can I just clarify if you think real life business was based on a video games like called Business Simulator?
Yeah.
Or do you think that was trying to simulate what it is in real life or business?
I think the game came first.
Right.
No, people are going to think I'm serious. I'm joking. Someone diagnosed me in the comments a while back with a mental illness. I'm joking. I'm really funny.
Thank you for listening to Mentored, the podcast where we do business mentoring in real time.
It was just a silly one.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. We'll see you next time. You can follow us on Spotify. And I'm trying to figure out Apple Podcasts, but it's impossible to figure out without an iCloud account. They're like, make an iCloud account. I'm like, I don't have an iPhone. And then I also have a YouTube playlist on my YouTube, youtube.com/votewillows. There's a Mentored podcast playlist on there. And then we also go live before everywhere else on x.com/drunkdividends. That's my finance media company. So that's where these are dropping before anywhere else. So on Drunk Dividends for those. You can find Alyssa at Prairie Wolf Bakery, buy some bread. Shrugging Dodger Beverage Company is my winery. Maple Leaf Rubber Stamps, one of my stamp companies. Canadian Marketing Systems is another one of my stamp companies. Canmark Industries, Drunk Dividends, Vote Willows, all that stuff.
Nice.
Bye.